Hot Tin Roof, The Cat That Wore a Fedora, is a rather unique video game. Hot Tin Roof is not a game that can be described in a mere few words, but if a mere few words were all that I had, I'd have to call it a Metroidvania love letter to film noir with great music and a good sense of humor. The game opens in the office of Detective Emma Jones. The phone's ringing off the hook and your partner, a little white cat named Frankie, is asking you about the gun you just snatched off the table. When you pick up the phone, it's a desperate client. There's been a murder and it's up to you to solve it. There's much more to the story than a murder, of course. While most of what you'll be doing revolves around solving the murder, there are neat little side plots that certainly enrich the story of the game. Without spoiling the story, what I can say about it is that thematically it's quite strong. While the dialogue is peppered with humor and references to film noir, the game doesn't feel parodical or farcical. Earnestly, but with a wry sense of humor, it carries on the spirit of film noir, albeit in the shape of a platformer. Every character in Hot Tin Roof's got two sides to the story. Their side, and the truth. Corruption and its effect on society is a pretty prevalent theme in the game. From the cat who's running for mayor, promising to be honest, unlike all the politicians before him, to the rats rioting in the sewers, demanding fair wages. The characters all have their prejudices, their loves, and their hates. The city pulses with energy. Dirty and dangerous, but alive and wonderful, and yes, I totally stole that quote from another game. Regarding the gameplay itself of Hot Tin Roof, it's primarily Metroidvania platforming. In case you're unfamiliar with the term, what it essentially means is that you're running and jumping from platform to platform, but, unlike in other games such as Mario, you are free to move between different places in the world at any time. The world of Hot Tin Roof is pretty nicely sized. The city is just big enough to be properly fleshed out with unique locations and things to discover, without it being so large that it becomes overwhelming and you find yourself getting lost. While I do think that the game grew a bit confusing towards the end, and I found myself lost in the gun factory over and over, overall I have to say that the platforming of and world design in Hot Tin Roof are pretty good. Of course, this isn't just plain platforming, and no film noir detective would be complete without a trusty gun. In Hot Tin Roof, your gun's not used for killing anything. It's actually meant to be loaded with different tools to help you solve the puzzles in the game. For instance, it can be loaded with a solution that generates bubbles that reveal clues in the environment, or with grappling hooks that you can use to swing across levels. I was disappointed that some of the ammo types got rather limited use. The bubbles, for instance, don't find much use towards the game's end at all. At some point, they're really only good for keeping Frankie entertained. The gun loading mechanic, on the other hand, got frequent use. It was actually inspired by another game called Receiver. In order to load your gun, you're pulled into another screen in which you load and unload ammo. It's a little touch, but it makes a difference to the game, since you may need to use two different types of ammo in quick succession. As a detective, you'll be collecting clues about the murder. Clues that you access whenever you pause the game. These clues come in the form of little Polaroid-styled photos that you keep in a folder. It's a very nice aesthetic touch that reinforces the film noir theme of the game. When you collect clues, you can use them in conversation with other characters in order to figure out what they know about the case. This is where Hot Tin Roof really shines. You're never really sure of who knows what, and there's a good motivation to talk to everybody. Thus, you wind up uncovering more bits of the story, and you get a fuller picture of the nature of the world. Aesthetically, Hot Tin Roof is fantastic. Hot Tin Roof has a very clean, simple visual style. The 3D objects in the game are rather simply textured. The lighting in the game, however, is a bit more complex, employing lots of shadows. Hence, while the textures are minimal, everything seems to have a lot of depth thanks to the lighting. The various locations in the game look great, and the character designs, while very simple, are rather distinctive. Each design does a good job at speaking to the personalities of the different characters. It would be a mistake to talk about Hot Tin Roof without mentioning the game's superb soundtrack. The music in the game, in contrast to the clean and simple visual style, is rather gritty and dirty. According to its Steam page, it's spiffy chip noir jazz. It's music that would be at home in a cool little lounge. It's very clearly jazz music, but what really sets it apart is that it's built from the ground up with slick chiptunes and deep electronic bass lines. If you play Hot Tin Roof, I strongly advise you have your volume up, otherwise you're doing yourself a disservice. On the whole, Hot Tin Roof is a good platformer with plenty of character, an interesting story, and fantastic music. While it drags on a bit towards the end, overall it's an experience worth having. Hot Tin Roof, The Cat That Wore a Fedora, is available for Windows, Mac, and Linux on Steam. For all the latest game news, reviews, previews, and interviews, be sure to follow at Blackman and Robin on Twitter. Be sure to follow me at Jordan_Cameron for my own views.